Medicine is something that, in this day and age, we can't live without. Humans are delicate creatures, and when something goes wrong, well, we need to fix it. Health has always been a primary focus, and for the first time in history, it seems like we actually might know what we're doing. Things, however, haven't always been like this. There was a time when medicine wasn't as evolved as we have it today, and I want to explore that a little bit by looking at medicine in the Middle Ages. Not only is the medieval era my favorite time period ever, but it's also a very interesting time for medicine in general. Medieval people, to say the least, were very weird. If you're new here, I'm Darius and this is Vlogs of Knowledge. Make sure to subscribe because we do have brand new episodes every single Wednesday, and honestly, I don't want you to miss any of them. Medieval medicine was really something. When you read about things like physicians drilling holes into people's skulls, or using leeches to suck their blood, or even prescribing mercury, a toxic substance, to treat illness, you kind of wonder, where did all of this come from? Because there's no way these people just randomly came up with the idea of drilling into people's skulls to heal them. It just so happens that our answer lies with the ancient Greeks. The Greeks, whom are known for geometry, democracy, and philosophy, are also known to be the first practitioners of medicine. In ancient Greece, a man by the name of Hippocrates started to collect data and conduct experiments showing that disease was a natural process and that the signs and symptoms were caused by the body's natural reaction to the illness. He wrote a book in which he lays out the basic approach to healthcare. He took influence from the Greek philosophers that viewed that the human body was something that reflects and mirrors nature. So in nature, you have four elements: fire, air, water, and earth. And in the body, you also have four elements called the four humors. The humors were blood, yellow bile, black bile, and phlegm. And being healthy relied on keeping those humors in the appropriate balance. For example, if you were coughing a lot, the Greeks saw that as an indication that you had too much phlegm in your body and that your lungs were trying to get rid of it to restore balance. And every medical treatment then turned to this notion of restoring a balance between the humors. This was an interesting time for early medicine. On one hand, Hippocrates had just published a book that popularized the theory of the four humors, but at the same time, the Greeks were still heavy believers in gods and the supernatural, and as a result, Greek medicine became a mix of both. An example of where we might find a different approach to medicine is in Homer's Iliad and Odyssey. In those books, the gods are described as the cause of plagues or widespread disease, and he suggests that those illnesses could only be cured by praying to the same gods that caused them in the first place. Fast forward a few centuries, Greek influence expands and their theories about medicine follow. In the 1st century, we have the coming of Jesus Christ, who starts a new religion that will soon be taking over the entire world: Christianity. As you can imagine, medicine was inevitably going to be influenced by this movement. Christians, like the Greeks, believe in the supernatural. In fact, most of the people of the time believed in one form of supernatural or another. And since the Greeks believed that the gods could have a say in human health and that disease could be a punishment from the gods, Christianity soon adopted the same belief. Their main thesis was that humans are all sinners and that the only way to be saved is by believing in Jesus Christ, who died on the cross for everybody's sins. Naturally, when you consider yourself a sinner, somebody who has wronged God, you would tend to associate any illness with a punishment from God, right? You do something bad, God punishes you. And while the early Christians believed that God could be wrathful, they also believed that he could be loving and that he would provide for the people to help them heal. One way that people thought God provided was through the herbs and natural remedies that existed. If God created everything and gave the earth and all that grows on it for human use, why not use that to heal the sick? So now I gave you, I think, enough information to paint the picture of what medicine was at the time. You can understand the superstition, the lack of empirical evidence, and the general attitude and beliefs of the people towards medicine. So now, let's look at how all of these influences played out in the Middle Ages. In the early medieval era, following the fall of the Roman Empire, medical knowledge was based mainly upon surviving Greek and Roman texts preserved in monasteries. They learned and continued with the notion of the four humors and their required balance in the human body. So if you were sick and had to go to the physician, he would perform a standard examination by evaluating your symptoms, your home climate, your diet, and even your astrological charts. The stars in the heavens influence every person in different ways by affecting the elements connected to certain humors, which was important information for reaching a diagnosis. Through the questions about the patient's lifestyle and charts, the physician could determine which humor was unbalanced and prescribe an appropriate treatment for it. A popular diagnosis was having too much blood, and the usual treatment for that was something called bloodletting, in which the physician uses leeches or other means of extracting blood from your body to fix you. And now you may be asking the question, did it work? Well, not really. Bloodletting is obviously very harmful to the human body. You are losing blood. Today we have ruled it out as a treatment and only use it for a few select cases. However, some of the effects of bloodletting include relaxation, lower blood pressure, and a feeling of being lightheaded, which, if you don't know any better, could be seen as signs of health improvement, which might explain why it was so popular. Now remember when I said that most surviving Greek and Roman texts about medicine were found in monasteries? Well, as medicine was advancing, people started to associate monasteries with medicine and health. Not only were the people in the monastery more likely to be able to read and understand medicine, but it also fit perfectly with the notion that God was involved in disease. These monasteries became the foundation for hospitals in the future. People from distant villages would make the trip to a monastery to seek healing through prayer and natural remedies, while also seeking to restore the human balance in the body. A combination of spiritual and natural healing was used to treat the sick. Herbal remedies, along with prayer and other religious rituals, were used in treatment by the monks and nuns of the monasteries, and some of these natural remedies provided symptom relief, even if just temporary. It was enough to make people keep using them. Where it gets really interesting is when people had mental disorders. Now, I don't want to sound like I'm saying anything bad about mental disorders, but from the outside, especially to somebody that has absolutely no idea about modern medicine, having a mental disorder can look like you're being possessed. And in a society where everybody fears and believes in the supernatural, things can get a little strange. Those who had mental disorders were treated using a variety of different methods depending on the physician that you went to. Some doctors believe that supernatural forces such as witches, demons, or possessions cause mental disorders. These physicians believe that prayers and incantations, along with exorcisms, would cure the sick and relieve them of their suffering. This eventually led to the development of Trephining, which was a means of treating what today would probably be considered as epilepsy by drilling a hole in the patient's skull. It was believed that any evil spirit or evil air would flow out of the body through the hole and leave the patient in peace. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't think a hole in the skull is going to do any good for treating any illness. Sometimes, when all other treatments failed, the only solution was to accept the suffering as part of your punishment. For example, when the Black Plague hit Europe in the 14th century and wiped out nearly half of the population, people saw that as a direct punishment from God and that the only way to get rid of the plague was to suffer. So much so that you literally had people going outside inflicting pain on themselves voluntarily to increase their suffering and hopefully getting God to have mercy on them for doing that. These people, they were called Flagellants and were quite common in the late medieval era. It's also important to know that people in the Middle Ages didn't really care about the origin of disease nor understanding it. They focused mostly on doing whatever they could to get rid of the symptoms. And I mean, can you blame them? With their limited knowledge, they had no way to know any better. Plus, I guess it doesn't really help that they didn't have the best hygiene, which in turn allowed disease to spread easily throughout the land. The truth is that in the medieval era, disease was very common and death from it was to be expected. And now I want to pass the question on to you guys. What do you think about medieval medicine? Are you surprised by any of the crazy things that they did? Please do leave me a comment. I would love to read and answer them all. And bonus points for you if you do leave a comment. You might get featured in next week's video as a fan of the week. And of course, as always, I know I haven't talked about everything regarding medieval medicine, and that's okay. I actually do this on purpose to get you guys to go out and research more on your own. Because I believe in research and I believe in getting you guys educated on the subject. That's why I do this show. And if you guys want to do some research, as always, there's some links in the description where you can start. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for giving your time to this video. If you've enjoyed it, if you've learned something, please leave it a big thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe, make sure to hit the notification bell, join Team Knowledge, and be notified whenever I release a new video. And with that being said, my name has been Darius. It's been an absolute pleasure. You can follow me on social media. The links will be in the description. And I will see you all next Wednesday.